G'day, John for the Hot End again. Today I'm going to talk about the THEHO Black Widow. Is it any good? Well, okay, g'day. The THEHO Black Widow, much maligned, been out for a little while now, and I have quite a lot to say about it, so this may take a while. You won't have a lot to look at except for me and to listen to me talking, but that's what it has to be for this one, I'm afraid. We were involved with the THEHO Black Widow way back when it was first released. They sent us a prototype model which I assembled. This is going back, it'll be 12 months ago, I think. And to be honest with you, we never actually got it to print. It was pretty horrible. It was certainly not ready to be released as a retail product, but they released it anyway. So there have been a lot of incantations of this machine over the last 12 months. There's been a lot of feedback from various groups, various forums on problems that it had. Some people went so far as to say that it was dangerous. Well, that's debatable, but it certainly was not a good printer. So over the last 12 months they have done a lot of work in getting this printer up to speed so that it is a usable machine and people are going to get value for money. It currently retails for $500 US, I believe. And as you can see, it's got a fairly large, wide, heated build plate. It's a large frame, heavy frame, looks like a strong printer and will perform as most printers do. It prints. It prints a variety of filaments, and THEHO sent us two of these machines. This is the current evolution of the machine. We've had this for 1 week only, so it's very current. It has all the upgrades and changes that they've made over the last 12 months. And I'm going to tell you about the building of, I built both of these machines, mine and Anthony's, and what I think of the build and the quality of the design. And then at some point down the track, once Anthony's had a chance to do a heap of printing on his, we will then follow up with a print review video. Okay, the whole thing took me, the first one took me around 8.5 to 9 hours to put together. The second one quite a bit less, because I sort of knew what I was doing then and didn't need the manual. It took me about 7 hours to do the second one. One of them has a BL Touch, which is this one. This is Anthony's machine. Mine does not. I don't like auto bed leveling, and mine is a manual bed leveling. As far as the assembly of the machine goes, it was the same as, if you can hear noises in the background, there's currently 1, 2, 3, 4 printers going in the studio at the moment, and I think one just came unstuck. Anyway, we'll continue. Where was I? Yes, the build is, as you would expect from a full kit printer. This is a build from scratch printer. Except for some of the wiring of the board is pre-done for you, but everything else you have to put together from scratch. There's a manual which comes with it. This is the assembly manual. It's good to a point. It leads you right through the build process, and is, as far as I'm concerned, very clear, very concise, up to page 36, where that's when it starts to get a little bit vague. It's like they sort of, I don't know, ran out of ink or something. But from there on in, I'll give you an example. Page 36 says, install the drag chain in place on top of the X-axis extrusion. Now, up until this point, everything is packed in the box in little bags with numbers on them, and it will say pull out bag number E10 or B3 or whatever it is, and in that bag has everything you need to do that step, all the nuts and bolts and the bits, everything you need. That all stops when you get to this point, because what it says is install the drag chain. Okay, first off, it doesn't tell you what a drag chain is, so you've got to hopefully know what it is. Secondly, it doesn't tell you where to install it. It doesn't tell you what to install it with, and it doesn't tell you where to put the mounts to install it. So, as I say, unless you know a little bit about printers or you can follow the actual pictures, it gets a little vague. So on it goes, assembling, how to do the BL touch. That was actually quite good, how to assemble that. Then it goes into assembling the control box. This is the control box here. That was okay, and then it stops again. You get to page 43 and it just basically says install the wiring, and it gives you a schematic drawing of how to install the wiring. Yeah, really, you really need to know what you're doing to do this part of it. There was one, well, I think it's an error in the manual with the wiring of the MOSFET, but I'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, once we got all that together, you sort of, yeah, and then it goes into how to use Repetier and setting up all the other bits and pieces, how to use a slicer and whatnot. So, what have they done from 12 months ago to now to improve this printer? All right, let's, in no particular order, go through a few of the changes, and I will give you my opinion as we go. Firstly, it's not actually a change, it's a non-change. The assembly of the frame is done with these little, and Anthony will give you a close-up of this when he edits, these little right angle die cast corner brackets. There's two at each corner and some in the cross piece down here. They're not up to standard as far as I'm concerned. You will never get it square with those brackets, and even if you did get it square, it would never stay square. Not acceptable as far as I'm concerned on a printer this large. Needs to be changed. Secondly, we have the large print bed, which is it's a good bed. It heats up nicely. It has good mounts. It's nice and flat. That's all good. But if you move the extruder across, you will notice that the motor hits the frame here and your hot end stops around here. So you have that much bed that you can't use unless you do some modifications up the top here. Okay. It slides on wheels on the track, which work quite well. A lot of printers use this system. It has the eccentric nut for tightening, and that's all fine. Another problem, well, another thing I don't like, let's put it that way, is the extruder cooling fan here. Now, if I can just move this around a little, you'll see that it's just sort of hanging there in mid-air. It's not specifically blowing cold air onto the throat, it's just sort of there. Now this is how it comes out of the box. I've done no modifications here. So in order to get good quality cooling onto your E3D, I think it's called, or clone, or whatever this throat is, you really need to print parts, and we'll get into that in a minute. Now, one of my pet hates with all these kit printers, and this is no exception, is it doesn't come with a print fan. The print fan you have to install yourself and put a and print yourself a duct and all of that stuff. As it is out of the box, this fan will cool PLA a little bit while you're printing because it's blowing all over the place, there's no direction to it. And that's fine if you're using PLA, but if you want to use ABS like I do, you will never get a successful print because there's just too much air movement all over the place. So that needs to be addressed. Let's see, what else? Yes. In the original printers, they had an issue with these side pieces of the X-axis that would bind on the inside of the frame. So they've fixed that by putting in some brass shims to stop the bolts touching on the inside of the frame, and that's fine, that works. But what it does in effect is it increases the length of this axis, which means that your frame no longer fits hard against the other piece because of the size of the shims. So you're always going to have a little gap down here because it's actually a fraction wider than it used to be. And that's okay, I can get around that too. That's not a problem. Now, the control box. This is the control box. You can see the wiring inside. It has a lid, which I've removed because it was reflecting. There have been a lot of discussions about the wiring of the Black Widow. One of the accusations was that the wiring was not up to standard. It was too small to handle the currents. They've fixed that. They've put these nice heavy pieces of wiring in the kit, and these control the wiring for your high drain items, which is your bed and your mains power. So they've fixed that. They've also added a MOSFET. This comes standard. This takes the strain off the board for heating the heated bed, and I don't know that I mentioned it's a 24 volt system, not a 12 volt. It's replaced the switch that was a big problem. People had trouble with the original switch. It was a push button switch. They've replaced it with one of these U-Butte switches, and that's all good. The wiring from the AC plug in the back to the switch at the front is still a little small as far as I'm concerned. That's this wire here. I would like to see that a little bit heavier gauge, but time will tell on that one. As I said, the board was pre-wired mostly, and that was good. Never had to touch anything on there. The power supply seems to me to work fine. There has been a lot of talk that the power supplies are not holding up, that they're having problems with the power supplies for whatever reason. My personal experience with the power supplies, I haven't had a problem. It's worked fine, but like I said, we've only had these a week. Time will tell whether we have any problems with the power supply, but as I say, a lot of people have complained about them. I can't because it's worked fine for me. The display works fine. There's a big kick-ass fan in the back here to keep everything cool, and it looks pretty. It's got the name on the side. The colouring and the look of the thing is really nice. I really love the look of this thing. But I've got to say that you'll find a lot of printers on the market. You can go into Thingiverse and you can print bits and pieces that may or may not improve the printer. And by that I mean they print new fan ducts and new brackets and all sorts of stuff because they can, because it looks nice, and some perceive that it actually makes the printer better when 90% of the time it doesn't, except for your print model fan, which again should have on all of them. On this particular printer, I would not use it until I printed a lot of those parts and put them on, because it needs those parts. For instance, there's this one. This is just a little duct that fits on the fan here, which directs the airflow directly onto the throat as it should be. Simple little print, easy to fit, should have been on there to start with. Okay, there's brackets that you can print. There's any number of brackets on Thingiverse. This is just one that I found. Go up here just to strengthen the whole thing. Front and back on all corners. I would definitely put those on, especially if you're going to move the printer. If it's just going to sit on a bench and never be touched, all right, you might get away with it. But if you have to move it, you definitely need these. There's also a few fan ducts and fan mounts for your print fan that you'll find on Thingiverse. That's all great. I've printed them for mine. The only problem I had was it's the only 24 volt printer that I have. So I've got to wait until I get a 24 volt 40mm fan to fit on the back to run the print fan. But that's not a big deal for me because I print ABS anyway, but it's still, I like to have one. Okay, in summary, for the price, which I believe is something like 500 odd US dollars as a standard kit, to be honest, there's better printers for that money as it stands out of the box. You can make it into a really good printer by all these add-ons that I've talked about, and there's even a fix for the extruder hitting the frame. There's heaps of little touch-ups that as I said, most printers aren't that necessary, but on this one they are necessary. So if you do all that, you print your brackets, you print your ducts, you double and triple check your wiring, you keep an eye on things like the power supply to make sure it's all good. Yep, it can be a great printer, but out of the box, it's not. One other thing I forgot to mention is the extruder with this gearbox is really heavy. There's a lot of weight being dragged around, which, don't know, may or may not be a problem. To me, it seems really heavy. I'd probably be swapping out the extruder for something else, but down the track possibly. But then that's just another modification. The actual design of the thing, the way the motors and belts are set up, yep, it's all good. It all works. It could just work a lot better. Would I buy one in its present form? No. No, I wouldn't. If you wanted a printer to play around with, to learn on, to learn how you can upgrade, to learn how you can fiddle with the various bits, yeah, sure. Go ahead and buy one. But TiVo, as far as I'm concerned, have two better printers than this. And that's the Tarantula and the Little Monster. They are both better printers than this printer at this stage. At some point down the track, they may fix all these things that I've talked about, and they probably will, and then it will be a good printer. But as it sits right here, right now on this table, I don't believe it's worth the money. Sorry about that, but we always give honest reviews, and that's my honest opinion of this. When Anthony has been printing for a while, he will give his opinion as well. We'll see how robust the bits and pieces are, and that might take a couple of months. And then we'll come back and tell you what we think after that time. As always, don't forget to hit like if you like our videos, and if you subscribe, it helps us a lot. And if you subscribe, don't forget to hit the little bell. That will give you a notification whenever we put up a new video. Patreon is always good if you want to help us out there. We do our very best to forward good quality information to you guys. We help you. Don't forget we have Facebook groups as well to help you. We've set up another one which is for the THEHOTEND Elite Facebook group, which at the moment is focusing on the Little Monster. We have our FolgerTech group, we have our Printer Geeks group. All of those groups have great people in them, and if Anthony or I aren't available to answer your questions, there's always someone else on there that will. So we're trying to help you as much as we can. If you can give us a hand, that'd be great. All right, I'll catch you on the next one. See you later.